All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today for our call about the child care wages teacher survey that we've been conducting over the last week and a half. And I just want to give you all, my name is April May, and I am the Coalition and Programs Director for MELA, which is the Mississippi Early Learning Alliance. And we have stakeholders and partners that are involved with us in this effort and they are called the Mississippi Forum for the Future. And this is a Mississippi coalition that is dedicated to early care and education. And as you can see, we have a number of individuals, organizations, and academic and government organizations that are members and that are supporting the effort in which we are doing within the Forum for the Future. The forum we have a goal, and our goal is by 2030, we want Mississippi's child care system to be state of the art, fueled by robust data, resources, and cross-sector collaboration to meet all the needs of children and families. So there's a very big goal, but we are on our way to achieving that. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Heather Hanna, and she's going to review the survey with you all. Heather.
Thank you, April, and thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. We know everybody's tired at the end of the day, but we did want to give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have about the survey and to just go through the survey with you so that you'll know how to respond to it. First of all, I just wanted to say a few words about the purpose of the survey. As April said, there is a group of people who are working on the issue of child care wages. It does not mean that just because of the survey that we're going to have increased wages. That is not a guarantee. However, this is the first step in order for us to get some information to inform that discussion and try to reach out to some sources for perhaps getting increased wages that are not parents, not child care directors, and not the Mississippi Department of Human Services, because we know that their budget goes toward providing subsidies, and that takes the full budget, and it doesn't leave, funding left over for increased wages. So really the purpose of this is to try and figure out what kind of wages and supports are needed to improve job satisfaction and recruitment of child care teachers. We know that we don't have enough in Mississippi. Also, to encourage child care teachers to stay in the child care field. Often folks are leaving because they do have an opportunity to make higher wages in another area, and encourage child care teachers to further their training and education. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'll say a few words just to hopefully clarify some points. And I'll also let Dr. Kathy Grace give her an opportunity to make a few points as well. This is not in any way affiliated with the Department of Human Services. They're aware of it, and we'll share the findings with them, but this is not funded by them or affiliated with them in any way. We're hoping that childcare providers, once we have this information, will join the other stakeholders who are conducting this research in advocating for higher wages and to use these data for that purpose. Everything that gets collected will be made available to providers. We're going to be completely transparent and share everything back, so all of you will have an opportunity to see the findings. And Kathy, would you like to say anything?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. As Heather says, this is kind of a bad time of the day, and so we do appreciate your attention. I would just like to reiterate a couple of things that Heather said, is that we are not in any way conducting the survey as a part of DHS work. It's not funded by DHS. It has nothing to do with DHS other than they will get the information just like everybody else will when it is all compiled. The main reason that we are trying to do this is to give your teachers an opportunity to have a say. And as far as I know, in 40 years, we've never done a survey like this that actually approached teachers to say to them, hey, we want to hear your voice. We want to know what your about and what you think on these questions. Now, we don't have emails for all the teachers in the state. Y'all know that. But we have for the licensed centers, the directors, registered homes, and so forth. So it's going to be up to you. You all are the gatekeepers as to whether or not you share this with your teachers. So if you make the decision not to do that, then that's going to be, in my opinion, not letting them have a say in just some information gathering, because as Heather said, this is not a guarantee that anybody's going to get a dime more, but it is a guarantee that we will have information that's credible, that we can use with other sources of funding. DHS is not the only fish in the sea. And for so many years, people have always looked to that as the only place. Well, it's not, but we've got to have some good data that help us make this report available to people in other factions in the state, other arenas. And so that's why we are really stressing that as many as possible to complete this, because the deadline is next week. August the 9th is the deadline. Now, on some of the questions you will say, well, my folks may need some supporting documents. Well, April is going to send out after this session two handouts that will help them, if you share it with them, to know about eligibility requirements for SNAP and for housing and some other information related to Medicaid. So please let them have that document as well in case they need to refer to it in answering some of the questions. So we're here tonight. We're going to let, as Heather said, as many questions as you all want to provide. We'll be monitoring the chat room as well as anything else that you would want to raise at the end of this presentation. But I've worked with many of you for a very long time, and I would just like to say this is critical to us moving forward. And so we really hope that you'll take this seriously. And so thank you, Heather, for that little bit of time.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I saw you come off mute. Sharon, did you have a question? May have been on accident. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And what you see here is a lot of you probably have seen the survey through an email, and that email has a link that goes to the survey. Or there's also a link or to this page, or maybe this is printed out and put in your center. If so, you can just scan the QR code to take the survey. We do ask that you just take it one time, and it can be taken either on the phone or the computer. Either is fine. We do ask that you finish the whole survey because that's very important. So when you go to the survey, this is what it looks like. This is what you see. And it discusses what the purpose is, which we've already talked about. Will my responses be confidential? Absolutely. You're not going to provide your name. There's a place for you to create a unique ID, which we'll go through together. But all the information will be combined in reports. We don't know who submitted anything. At the Social Science Research Center, we'll see the individual surveys. Again, we won't have your name, so we won't be able to connect your responses. So to move forward in the survey, you just hit these arrows. If you want to go back, you can hit the back arrow. And here we provide some brief instructions on how to take the survey. I know some people are more comfortable using a computer than others. And so these, if you don't use the computer a whole lot and you're taking the survey on a computer, we did provide some basic instructions here. So if you're familiar, you can skip that. So here's where we ask for a unique ID. And so your unique ID will consist of the last two letters of your first name. For me, that's ER, followed by the last three digits of your phone number. 013 is mine. First two letters of your mother's first name. My mother's first name is Mary, so I'm going to put M-A. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to move forward. It's very important that we, if you have more than one job, it's very important that you think about just one of those jobs as you answer these questions. So we're going to ask you a series of questions that'll help you figure out what job you're thinking about. If you only have one job, it's pretty simple. You would just say, no, I don't have more than one. And you would just go right on to the next questions. Of course, you're thinking about your current childcare job. But if you do have more than one place of employment, we ask you another question. Do you work at more than one childcare facility? If you say yes, then we have to figure out which one you're going to think of as you respond to these questions. If you say no, no problem. You just think about the childcare facility where you work. So let's respond yes. It says, do you work at one childcare facility more than the others? So if you have two childcare jobs and you work at one 10 hours and you work at one 20 hours, we want you to think about the one that is you're working at 20 hours. But if you work at them the same amount of time, then we say, okay, is your job title the same? Because if you have a different job title, then we want you to think about the one where your job title is most advanced. But if you're like, no, my job title is the same at both of them, then we're going to say, okay, do you receive more benefits at one of the childcare jobs? And if you say yes, then we're going to say, okay, think about that one where you receive the most benefits as you answer the questions and consider that your current childcare job. If you say no, then we'll say, please just think of one of the facilities because you have two childcare jobs, you have the same title, you get the same benefits, so it doesn't matter, you just pick one. But I suspect most people would probably, it would end kind of right here. Okay, and you move forward. Now you see there's a gray box over here that you can use to scroll up and down as you answer these questions. And the first question is, how many hours per week do you usually work? You may say, oh, okay, I usually work 35 to 39. And then it says, how many hours per week would you like to work? And you might say, well, I'd really like to work about 25 hours a week. And so we're trying to figure out what are people having to fill in more and work more than they would actually prefer due to short staffing and that type of thing. So we're curious to know how many hours you would like to work. And so then we want to know what your title is at that current childcare job that you're thinking of. And you may say, oh, okay, my title is assistant teacher. Now, I have learned that some directors who are also teachers, because we want teachers to respond to this, some directors who are also teachers have responded, and that's fine. You can just click none of these apply. My role is director/teacher. And we'll know. Now, one thing that the computer is very finicky about, if you realize you've typed in something wrong and you actually need to select another option, you can't leave that text in that box. It gets very angry, so you have to go back and get rid of it. Okay, so then we ask, what's your highest completed level of training or education? I'm going to say, okay, I have a CDA. Are you currently enrolled in any certificate or degree earning programs? I'm just going to say no. You'll, of course, respond to what applies for you. Are you currently licensed to teach in public schools? No. How many years have you worked in childcare? I'll say, okay, I've worked in childcare for 25 years, and I've been at my current job for 5 years. Do you speak any languages other than English? If I do, then it's going to ask me, do you speak a non-English language with any of the children in your care or their families? I might say, yes, I do. And then also we ask if you work with children who have mental, physical, or other disabilities. And if you say yes, we'll ask how many children in your care. You might say 2. And the reason that we're asking these questions is that these are the types of factors that could determine a childcare teacher's wage. These could come into play. So it's important to know how many of our childcare teachers that applies to. Okay, so next we're going to move into another set of questions, and this set is about your childcare wages and also assistance programs that you may participate in. Again, we remind that it's completely confidential. And so we ask, are you paid by the hour, or do you have a salary, meaning that you get paid the same each week or month, regardless of the number of hours that you work? So most people will probably say hourly. So then we'll say, okay, so how much per hour do you make? And we would prefer that you don't put the dollar symbol in there. And if you say you make $8.50 an hour, you could put $8.50 and just leave off the dollar sign. If you decide, you know, I don't know, I know this is confidential, but that's kind of personal, I'd rather not say. That information is so important to us that we're going to ask it in a couple of different ways. So if you say, I prefer not to say, and you would need to take the text out of the box since you're no longer selecting that response option. If you say, I prefer not to say, we're going to come back and ask you and say, okay, will you at least tell us a range? And so you might say, okay, all right, I'll indicate this range. But if you're still, you know, I'd really rather not say, we're going to try to ask you one more way. Do you make more or less than $10 an hour? You could say less, but our hope is that we will get the actual wage in that question. So then we said, well, what wage or salary increase would cause you to consider leaving your job in childcare for a non-childcare related job, assuming the benefits are the same? You might say, well, if I was making $4 more per hour, which would be $693 per month, I think I would probably leave. How often are you paid? Because we know how much you make per hour, but we don't know how often you're getting paid. Is that weekly? Is that every other week? Let us know. So now we ask if your household receives assistance from any of these following programs. And you may say, yeah, get SNAP and Medicaid. And then you'll be asked to give your opinion about a scenario. Rita works in childcare. She's been offered an hourly wage increase of $5 per hour, which would give her $867 more per month. However, she's learned that if she accepts the raise, it's going to cause her to lose a couple of her assistance programs, including Medicaid and SNAP. So then we ask you, should Rita accept this wage increase, even if it means that the monthly benefits that she was receiving of $1,000 per month go away? So is it worth it, even though you're going to make a little bit less each month, to accept the raise, or would you rather not and keep the benefits? And then we ask why not? You know, you might say less money per month. Okay. So now we ask, and this is so important, how much of an increase in pay would you need to cover your expenses without any assistance programs? So if, you know, you might say, I need $750 per month to cover my expenses. If I don't have access to assistance program, then that's the raise that I would need each month. And the reason that's so important is that as we start to engage business leaders and other stakeholders around the state, we need to have some kind of idea about what the wages need to be that would actually be beneficial and not ultimately hurt providers because they lose benefits. So that's really important. So now we're kind of curious about bonuses versus wage increases. So we say, which would you rather have? Would you have an hourly wage increase or a bonus? Which would you prefer? You might say, I'd really rather have two big lump sums. And so if you say you want a bonus, it says, okay, well, what if the money was slightly less than the wage increase? Would you still want a bonus? So you might say yes, you might say no. All right, so now you get asked what hourly wage or salary increase would cause you to consider getting your next highest credential or degree. So I said I had a CDA, so what would I need that would, really make me want to go for the associate's degree? I think if I had $5 more per hour, which would be 867 more per month, I think I would do that. So we also want to ask about job benefits, because we know that it's not always all about the money. Benefits are also important. So we ask, what benefits do you currently get? You might say, well, I get reduced childcare tuition by my employer. Currently, I also get support with children's behavior challenges. And it says, which of the following benefits or supports are most important to you? Select your top 5. And so you might say, okay, well, I really need health insurance and retirement and some paid time off, paid sick leave. And, really, I'd like to have a little more respect from my employer. That's important to me. Okay, so now we want to know, how stable is the childcare workforce? Are people currently looking for new jobs? In the past 3 months, have you looked for a new job? If you say yes, then we want to know, was it in childcare or another area? So you might say it was in another area. Okay, so this is our last set of questions. And this is where we're going to ask a little bit about the facility that you work for, as well as you personally. So what type of childcare facility do you work for? You might say, well, it's a center, independent center. What county is it in? You might say Claiborne. And what age group are the children that you care for? You might say, I care for 2-year-olds. And then we ask, as far as you know, how many of the children fall into these particular racial or ethnic categories? So you might say, I have 2 children who are Black, I think, or Black or African American. 2 children, I think, are white. 1 child, I think, is Hispanic. And 1 child is more than one race. And then we ask you, is your classroom usually full? You say yes or no, whatever applies. Do you typically work any of the followings? You might say, yeah, sometimes I have to work weekends. And then we ask about your race and ethnicity. And here you can select more than one. I would say white, non-Hispanic. What is your gender? You type this in. I would say female. And what's my year of birth? We don't want to know that. We're just going to put up a make-believe one. So when you hit this arrow, it submits your survey, which I'm not going to do in case you have questions and we need to go back. So that's it. That's a lot of information, and I'm going to be quiet now and see if anyone has any questions or comments. Oh, okay. I see.
One in the chat box, please.
Yeah.
Yes, I can read it out loud.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So we have a question from Katrina Dace. She says, those questions are biased questions. I don't even know if my employees receive assistance.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Ms. Dace. And you won't be answering it for them. They will be answering themselves. And so they absolutely may say, no, I did not receive any assistance. The reason that we're asking that question is we want to make sure that if childcare providers are receiving benefits from assistance programs, that we don't advocate for a wage that would knock them off of those programs. We want any wage increases to ultimately benefit providers and not hurt them. Is that helpful at all? We're not assuming that they are or aren't on the, oh yeah. Yes, ma'am, it is. You are absolutely right. It is very private information. And that's why we're going so far to make sure that the responses are confidential. We really have no way of knowing who submitted the information. So we could never say, ooh, I know Miss Dace is, receives this or that. As a matter of fact, the information is kept so private, and there's no way for us, even me, who'll be looking at the surveys, I won't have anybody's name. I don't know who submitted it. And we were talking the other day, and we want to do a raffle to everybody who participated. And we said, well, we don't know who participates. We don't have names, so we can't enter them into a raffle. So what we decided that we would do is just to send out an email afterward and just tell people, the survey's closed. If you participated and you want to be entered into the raffle, you can provide your name. So is there any way that you would, so Ms. Dace, I see what you're saying. I mean, I hear your comment. I'm trying to think of a way to address it. So say one of your providers says that they do accept, like they do receive Medicaid, a child receives CHIP or Medicaid or something. We won't have any way to know that they said that. Is that helpful? They'll just, like, it's pretty much anonymous.
Heather, would that person have to answer the question, or is there a place where they can just move forward and not
Yeah,
even?
they can just skip it. They can skip it if they're absolutely, none of these questions are required. You can just skip anything that you don't feel comfortable with. You can skip it. Okay, thank you, Ms. Dace. I appreciate you voicing that.
And once again, this is entirely voluntary. Even if you offer it to your staff, they don't have to do it. That's just up to them if you choose to offer it to them. And this is not any way to try to track somebody individually on what they do or don't do. It's back to what Heather said. If for some reason people have talked about for on and on and on, we need to raise wages, which absolutely everybody agrees with. But to determine if raising them could sit somebody off into a negative, that's what we're trying to get people to think about of their own accord, so that they're not going to lose SNAP because they got $2 an hour more than what they had been getting. So again, this is all voluntary. It's however they want to treat it. And it's certainly, if you make it available, you can make it clear to them that they are completely, it's voluntary, and they can only, if they want to skip something, they certainly can.
Ms. Davis says that the raffle may be done by using the code that was set up when we registered for the survey.
We won't be able to link those codes to people. I mean, I guess we could just, randomly select them and then put it out to the community and say, whoever's code this is, you won something. But I would hate to do it that way, because I would be afraid that we might have more than one person speak up and say, oh, that's my code, and we won't have any way to know. So we'll probably stick with just letting people provide their names if they choose. Okay.
Where do we find the survey to fill it out?
Yes. So we can send it out to you after this. April, will you be able to
Yes,
send the link?
Yes. So after the call, when you register for this Zoom call, you submitted your email address. And so I will be sending some information to go along with the survey, as well as the link to complete the survey. The link is the QR code, and all you would need to do is use your telephone, scan the QR code, and then you'll have access to the survey. And then once you start the survey, as Heather mentioned, it's very imperative that you complete the survey in its entirety in order for us to receive all of the data that we need from that survey. Are there any other questions? Is there a deadline? Yes, August the 9th.
Heather, you might want to address folks, like, I know we had a question earlier about if you were the director and everybody in your center wanted to complete it, but they didn't have a computer and they all had to use that one computer. Could you address that for them?
Yeah, sure. So if you say that you are starting to take the survey on the computer and you have to walk away, when you come back, it's going to pick up where you left off as long as you're using that same device. And so if, let's say you have a center and you have 4 teachers who are wanting to all use the same computer to submit their survey, whoever the first person is who starts, they'll need to finish the survey and submit it before the next person will be able to access it. So once they submit theirs, you can take that same link, put it back in, and it'll start fresh. Same thing on your phone. If you start to take the survey and you get distracted, you get called away and you can't finish it, that's fine. All you have to do is come back later. It will pick right back up where you left off and you can finish it then.
Right. And then, as I mentioned earlier, about our Mississippi Forum for the Future, this is a working group called the Wages Working Group that's conducting this survey, and we'll be doing more work with it after we gather the data. But the working group is open to anyone who would like to participate. So we're asking you if you want to participate in the working group so that you can have a voice at the table of what we would do with this information, or where will it go, what's needed after we get all of this data. Please feel free to join the working group. You can email me or you can email Connie Clay, and we will set you up for the next working group meeting. And she has her email in the chat to cbclay@olemiss.edu.
Excuse me, I just wanted to thank Connie because she has kept us in line. That means us, meaning Biz and April and Heather and myself, so that we can stay organized. And you might want to mention how we're going to make this recording available so that people can share that information, or how it will be shared, since this is our last official online in-person meeting.
Yes, so we're going to put the recording on the MELA, which is the Mississippi Early Learning Alliance YouTube page, but we will email you all with that link as well. So please share it with your friends, share the code with your friends, families, colleagues, whomever you know that's a teacher in the classroom, so that we can get as many of these surveys completed as possible. So you don't have to, you can share it with anybody who's a teacher in a classroom in a childcare center.
And Ms. Triggs, I see you asked the question, do you have to scan the code? Yes. If as soon as you see that QR code, you can scan it with your phone and go to the survey. And then there's also a survey link that you can use. I don't know, April, if that's going to be in the email that you send out or not, but if someone would prefer to have the link that takes you to the survey, we can provide that as well.
Yes. It would be in the email.
Okay.
All right. I think if there are no more questions, we want to, okay, so Carolyn James says, does the survey, hold on, does these surveys can be linked to any phone? Yes, you can use your Android, iPhone to complete them. And then Ms. Triggs, we will send the link and also the QR code. So you'll have both options to get to the survey.
I think we have some people who may be joining us late. If you are just now tuning in, we have gone through the survey and demonstrated. And so what we're going to do is we're going to send out a recording of this meeting. So in case you missed something or want to rewatch it or share it with others, we'll be providing that to you.
I'm sorry, I had missed. I have children. I had to release my children today, so I'm sorry. I really wanted to.
You were fine, Ms. Dixon. That is no problem at all. We completely understand, and we'll send you the recording. So, and then if you have any questions after you watch that, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Any more questions, comments? Okay, how beneficial are these surveys to the one who is in school?
I think if you are currently in school working toward a degree that would benefit you in early childhood, I think that it's immensely important for us to hear from you because, hopefully, as you move into the childcare field, these data can be used to raise wages that you could expect later on. Kathy, do you want to respond? Did I answer that correctly? So you're saying that you're in school right now, Miss James?
Yeah, she said she is.
And
Okay.
I would just reiterate what Heather just said, is that when we find this information out, then that gives us a base for us to begin to think about those who are getting more education, more experience, and so forth. So this is very important for everybody to think about the current, but also the future of what we want to try to do in a very thoughtful and a very responsible way, so that we can really elevate the pay of everybody who is involved in this profession. And so that's why we are asking the profession to give us feedback and to let us know, your thoughts.
And we will provide the data back to you guys, and then also at some point ask for your help in advocating. After this, we want to take the data that we have and the information that we have and identify the best strategies we think for Mississippi to pursue this issue, and then engage those folks. And at that time, we're hoping to really have a strong support system from the provider community to help do that as well.
All right, if there are not any more questions, we want to again thank you for your time. Oh, she said, as a matter of fact, I graduated from Hines Community College in May in early childcare with an AA degree, and I'm going to Jackson State to obtain a bachelor's. Congratulations.
That's fantastic, Miss James. That's great.
All right, lady. Okay, so if there are no,
I have a question. I know
Okay.
I came in late.
come on in. Who is this? Ms. Dixon?
Yes,
Okay.
I have a question. I'm sorry I came in late, but my question is, I already have like director and everything, but it's just funding is what I need. It's like helping funding, like finding employees, and it's hard to find employees.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. I think that's the trend that we're seeing across the state, and not just in Mississippi, but the whole country. The whole country is really wrestling with this issue right now about how can we stabilize the childcare workforce, because we have had a lot of people leave, and it's really hard.
yes.
So hopefully we can get some information that will help start that discussion in Mississippi, or take the discussion to the next level.
Yes. Everybody's looking for $15 an hour. I'm like, really? Daycare don't make that much.
Mhm.
Oh, oh, yep.
I
All
think
right.
there's a question from, I
Miss-
think there's a question from Miss Stacy. Is there any scholarships out there to help assist her now? And I would say to you, again, if you have child care payment program children, the Department of Human Services has said that they're going to issue some grant applications in the near future for certain types of programs that they're interested in giving extra funding to, but that's through the Department of Human Services. So that would be a question that you could pose to them. Yeah, I think, locally, it depends on where you live. So that also plays into the kinds of areas they're looking for and types of programs for serving children of certain ages. But again, the Department of Human Services is where you would want to look there. And also the recruitment of your parents who have not been able to get CCPP up until now, because the rule has changed. The father does not have to participate in child support for that a person to be eligible for CCPP. And I'm not sure how many parents know that. So if you know of parents in your communities that for whatever reason have not been able to apply in the past, or they don't think they can now. And so that's another revenue source that you might want to pursue.
I was just waiting for anyone else to ask any more questions. They have been some good questions that come across tonight. Okay, you can also email us if you have any more questions, and can respond back to you all on that. But look forward to the emails. It's going to have the link to the link or the QR code to the survey, and it's 2 documents that I will be emailing you all to help you complete the survey. And we will be in touch with you all soon. Y'all have a very good night.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.